Okay, we're gonna get started. Maybe some people will trickle in. This is our first time at this event, but we're here with the Difference Engine. My name's Alyssa, and I'll be talking about the Women's Power and Influence Index and briefly the Difference Engine and what that is. So we're an ASU-wide venture studio. We're under the President and Provost's office, and we have a lot of different schools involved with us. We have a lot of Barrett students that work with us through a program we run. Some of them are here today. We also are partnered with the law school, the business school, Herberger's Institute. So there's a lot of different schools involved with us. Let me get my clicker. Okay, maybe it's not working. Yeah. Can you control it? Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Difference Engine first, and just kind of go over exactly what we do and some of the different services and products that we offer. So we will transition it into the Women's Power and Influence Index, but as you can see on this slide here, there's a lot more than we do besides just products. We offer processes and services. Engineering for Change is our speaker series. We also have newsletters. One of the biggest things that we've been working on in the past year is a community-built police department. We've really started hitting the ground on that initiative, and we're based out of LA, so a lot of this work is being done in LA. And then obviously the Women's Power and Influence Index, which you're going to be hearing a lot of. Supercharger, it's kind of similar to Venture Devils. We've been kind of partnering with them, trying to build a more expansive program out. And then this just kind of goes over our three-stage plan and kind of how we operate at the Difference Engine. So one of the first stages, year 1 through 4, which as you can see is the stage that we're in right now, is prototyping a new model for social change. And so we're in this stage of like building out and testing our projects and products for communities, and all of these projects that we offer are used to reduce inequality. And then as you can see in year 3, that's when we're going to start expanding these projects and actually get the community more involved and kind of launching, if you will, these different projects. And then in year 5 is when we plan to scale all of these, and we're hoping to replicate them nationwide and just kind of have a more broad and sustainable impact with the different things that we're trying to do. And again, all of our projects will hopefully follow this flow as we get more and more involvement and get more people aware of the work that we're doing. And so, as I mentioned, what I'm going to be talking about and Si Chuang today is the Women's Power and Influence Index, which was actually started about 2 years ago. And we started this index just because we recognized a need for addressing women's inequality within the workplace. And as you can see, we're quantifying the power of women in the workplace, scoring companies based on how equitably their policies are at treating women, promoting women, within the workplace. And it's a little bit more than just an index. I know that that's in the title, but I want you to think of it more as a tool, data-driven insight tool for change. And so I want to get into a little bit of the why we created this. I touched on it a little bit, but I feel like this graphic does a really good job at showing one of the things we address is equitable pay. And I know that's something that you hear a lot of when thinking about women's inequality. And our index does cover a lot more, as you'll see, than just pay. But I think this graphic is just really striking. At the top, you can see men making the full dollar, and it breaks down women make 83% to the man's dollar in the workplace. And then as you can see, Black women and Latinx women make 64% and 57% respectively. And so that's kind of why we wanted to create the index, to help bridge this gap. And there was another stat I found that at the current rate of how we're progressing in terms of women's equity in the workplace, women's equality won't be reached within this field until 2056. And so we've kind of created this index to speed up that process. And then this is another stat from the Russell 3000 that shows that 6% of the top 3,000 companies in the US are led by a woman. And so this is another area that the index is trying to address. We're just really trying to promote that women actually are in higher level positions, not just that they're recruited and brought into these companies, but they're actually able to progress within them and reach these executive positions so that they are able to make more policies and advancements within their company to help benefit all of their women at their companies. And that kind of goes over the way we address helping females and employees, prospective employees within these companies. And there's another side to our index where we do focus on how this can actually benefit the companies as a whole. This is kind of our business proposition, if you will, slide. And it shows that diverse and inclusive companies actually earn 2.5 times more per employee, and their teams are 35% more productive. And so I think this just really gets at the heart of why these companies should care about the work that we're doing and why they should kind of implement these policies. As we'll get into the data, you'll kind of see the things that we measure these companies on. And we just really think this is a great way to show there is incentive other than just the good of their employees, which is obviously very important. And so that kind of touched on the why we exist. And I think it kind of dips into these two key areas, which is measurement and behavior change. You can't change what you can't measure. And if you think about other indexes that exist, there's the US News and World Report. I'm not sure, I know we're all in the field of academia and somewhat, so I'm sure you're familiar with that index. I personally have used that when I was looking at different schools to apply to and different programs that best suited my interests, even in my master's program as well. And you can't change what you can't measure, and so we really believe that these indexes or these indices will be able to promote this change, just like the US News and World Report does, just like the Dow Jones does. It helps people make critical decisions, and we want women to be able to use the WPI to make critical decisions when deciding where to apply, and if they have job offers, which offers to accept. And then the second point here is public rankings actually ignite behavior change. And so when companies are able to see themselves compared to their competitors in their industries or even in completely different industries, it's shown that this will actually motivate them to institute equitable policies. And we've already seen this in some of our partnerships we've had with companies, which we'll get into a little bit. But those are kind of the two main reasons why we exist. Now I want to segue into more of the how we accomplish this and kind of what our index does once we collect data from these companies. We're currently only collecting data from Fortune 500 companies, and these companies are then being ranked. We also use EEO data, and they're being ranked in our index based on our criteria methodology, which again, Si-Chuang is going to get into a little more. And then once these companies are ranked, we actually partner. We're trying to partner and engage in outreach initiatives with these companies, which we've done with PayPal. I have a short little video to show you. We've been in talks with Citibank and Sodexo to kind of have these consulting efforts to kind of get them to think more about what their policies are and how they can better them and find the gaps within their company policies. And then we actually share this. As I mentioned, public rankings are what ignites behavior change. So we do share these results on our website, on our social media, because we believe in transparency. And then this just dips a little into our rankings right now. As you can see, there's 3 rankings, and we're currently only using categorical rankings while we're still kind of ensuring the validity of our criteria. So Trailblazer is our highest ranking. Then we have our mid-grade Pacesetter ranking, and then on the end there we have the late bloomer, which is our lowest ranking. And as we ensure more of the validity of our criteria in future versions, we plan to expand to alphabet, like numerical scores, so letter grades, and then eventually numerical scores, which we have on our end, but we don't release that publicly. And then again, here you can see same order, Trailblazer, Pacesetter, and Late Bloomer. These are some of the companies that we have already released on our version 1.0. It's currently the only version of the index that is out right now, and we'll touch on 2.0. That's what a lot of this presentation is going to be about, the expansions that we've made. But as you can see, these groups like Citi and PayPal fared really well on the index. Companies like Target and Disney did pretty well, but there's still a lot of gaps in their policies that we notice, whether that's transparency or even a lack of criteria that measures up to what we're looking for. And then late bloomer, which is BlackRock, Meta, companies like that didn't do too great. And again, that could be just a lack of transparency, which we're really pushing for these companies to be more open with the policies that they have. And then here, I just want to go over a little timeline. As I mentioned, we kicked off the Difference Engine in the summer of 2021. And in between that time, in winter of 2022 is when we actually started launching version 1.0. And we've kind of done a slow ball release rollout. And so we're releasing companies. We started out every 3 weeks. We've kind of ramped that up in preparation for 2.0. And now you can see we're right now in fall 2023. We've started data collection for 2.0, and we've totally revamped the index and what we're looking for, criteria, semantics. And we've also began working more on our consulting and certification process. And then in spring of 2024, so it's coming up soon, we're going to be launching version 2.0, which we're all really excited about. It's a very comprehensive version of our index. And actually wanted to share a little announcement. March 8th, 2024 in LA at the ASU California Center, we're going to be hosting the version 2.0 release, and we'd love to see anybody that wants to join us there. If you have a way to get to LA, it'll definitely be worth your time. We're still hashing out some of the details, so you can connect with me after if you're interested. There's going to be a lot of different events, top ASU leadership there, faculty, staff, and a lot of students as well. So that's kind of everything in terms of kind of how we got started, why we exist, and now I'm going to hand it off to Si Chuang to go into a little more depth on our criteria.
Thank you, Elisa. So let me introduce myself a little bit. So I'm Sixiong Zhou from Industrial Engineering at School of Computing and Augmented Intelligence. I'm a PhD student, and this is my third year with Women's Power Index. So now let's take a look at the data part. For this part, let's first look at the data collection and verification. We collect data only from public available sources, like the information released by the organization, like their diversity report, or just as shown at the left-hand side, the code of business conduct. And we also collect data from submissions to Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EOC. Specifically, we are actually collecting data from the EO1 report. So the right-hand side, we show an example of a EO1 report. And we don't use the data from like social media or news. And for our data verification, all our collected data are triple checked. And all our results, narrative content, and methodology choices are reviewed by a substantive standard and our review committee. And in our 1.0 version, we consider 5 binary criteria and 1 numerical criteria. And under each of these criteria, we include more sub-criteria. So just as shown as the criteria tree here. And for the binary criteria, for each of the sub-criteria, we're actually answering a yes or no question, which means that for specific sub-criteria, we check if the company has a relevant policy or not. So if they have the policy, we mark 1. If they don't have, we mark 0. So for example, if we look at the child care benefits on the work-life balance, we just check if the company has any child care benefits, no matter they have 1 kind of child care benefits or 10 kinds of. As long as they have any, we can give them 1 for this sub-criteria. So this is how it works for the binary criteria. And for the numerical criteria, we extract data from the EO1 report, as I just mentioned before. So we use the values like the percentage of a women employee. And then we translate the values into a score using our scoring table. And then combining the binary and the numerical criteria, we use a weighted sum and to get our overall score for each company. In 2.0 version, so we actually make a lot of updates for the criteria, as you can see in the expanded tree here. So basically for the numerical criteria, we don't change anything for the branches, but for the binary criteria, we can see that the updated or modified criteria, they are marked in red in this tree. So we will talk about them in more details in just 1 minute. But here, let's first briefly summarize what has been changed for 2.0 version comparing to 1.0. So first, we incorporate insights and recommendations from our research team. And we updated criteria with more specific definitions and semantics. And we also added new criteria to achieve granularity. And we can have a glimpse of our 2.0 criteria database here. So we have all our collected information or data saved here. Now let's look at the binary criteria one by one with more details. The first binary criteria is equitable pay. So it means males and females, they should get the fair payment. In our 1.0 version, we call it compensation, and we include only one sub-criteria, pay gap. In this case, as long as a company has policy related to pay gap, they declare that or realize this issue, then they can get full score for this criteria. And in 2.0 version, we expand this one sub-criteria to 3 sub-criteria. Now first, we check if the company has a clear statement of the idea of equitable pay, and then they need to have annual review on this. And also, they need to show that they have achieved pay parity. And all these 3 sub-criteria we assign in different ways based on their importance. And that's for the equitable pay. And the second binary criteria is career goals. So this means females should have the equal chance for the career as males. And in 1.0, we consider 3 sub-criteria with equal importance. So there are professional development. It means the company should have program for career growth and advancement. And the mentorship, the company should have mentoring program for the advancement of careers. And recruitment efforts, the company should have program to actively recruit women. And in 1.0, we only consider these 3 sub-criteria. And for 2.0, we use these 3 sub-criteria as a level 2 sub-criteria, actually, under the plan actions. So, which means that this is just a part of requirement for the company to do for the career growth. And under each of these sub-criteria, we have more details. So now we are checking if the company, they have women-specific program, or they just consider women as a subgroup of the diverse group. And in addition to this, also, we check if the company has commitment to women's career. And also need to show that they have such planned actions, but they also have got some good results. Their performance need to be assessed. So for here, we're using the women percentage increase to assess the performance for the career growth. The third binary criteria is work-life balance. So this means the organization or the company should support family needs. And in 1.0 version, we have 3 equally weighted sub-criteria. And for 2.0, we reorganized these 3 sub-criteria a little bit. And now we get a new expanded subtree for 2.0. And here, we consider mainly 2 aspects, childcare and healthcare. And still, we first check if they have a clear statement of the idea. And for the childcare, we also check if they have detailed planned actions. And here we consider only like 4 kind of actions they should have, which we think they are most important because we are still an ongoing project. In future, we plan to include more so we can cover more aspects of the childcare. And for the healthcare, we check if the company has women-specific healthcare policies. So that's for the work-life balance part. The next binary criteria is workplace standards. So this is mainly about the harassment-relevant policies. And still, for 1.0, we have 3 equally weighted sub-criteria, and we reorganize them a little bit and get our version 2.0. So in 2.0, first, still, we check the statement of harassment policy, if they have a clear statement, and then we check if they have planned actions, including training program and defined process. The defined process here means they should define clear actions against reported harassment incidents. And the last binary criteria is stakeholder engagement, including both external and internal initiatives for gender equality. So actually in 1.0, we only consider external stakeholder. And in 2.0, now we are considering both external and internal. And for each of them, still, we check the statement of ideas first. And then for external stakeholder, we check if they have a community engagement program. And for internal stakeholder, we check if they have training or speakers program to promote gender equality in the company. So those are the binary criteria for our current version. And for our future scoring, we have made a plan for that. And for now, for the overall score, as I have introduced, we are using weighted sum to calculate the overall score. So in this process, you can see that the different weight selection, they actually affect the result a lot. So it's always a difficult problem to select a good weight on that. So now we're using analytic hierarchy process for weight determination. So we are design and deploy survey to the public. So we will deploy the survey soon. Then we can collect data to see which criteria the public think they are more important. Then we can assign higher weights to them correspondingly. And also, just like I mentioned in the childcare part, we will add more additional criteria, not just for the childcare, but also for other criteria to cover more aspects. And also, we are exploring to use machine learning techniques for scoring. For example, we have tried to use clustering algorithm to assign labels for different companies. So that's basically about our data part. And Elisa will continue to introduce you more details about our project.
Thank you, Si Chuang. I know it's a lot, and I always think you do a great job at kind of breaking down and explaining our index a little more. So I want to go back to the business proposition I talked about and kind of the partnerships that we're doing with companies and trying to expand on. So I have a short little video to play for you. This was back in April of this year. We hosted one of these talks and kind of went over PayPal's scoring, what they could do to improve. And this is how that conversation went.
Really proud of our students who you'll hear from today, as well as our faculty members and staff who've done this work, and appreciate this opportunity to be in conversation with you about this important topic and your leadership on these issues.
There's some really interesting conversation for us to have around, what are we doing well based off of what you're seeing, what you're finding, and also what areas of opportunity are there for us going forward.
Because we're a public institution and our mission is to educate the public, our goal was to create something that anybody could use, something that was very complicated on the back end, but very simple to understand. The Difference Engine is a venture studio at ASU of which the index is a product, and the goal of the engine is to change the way communities think about achieving social justice goals.
We only use publicly available sources of data. We would like companies' efforts to be very visible. We want them to be publicly available, not only to, basically so that company's efforts can be recognized, but it's basically, we want everybody to adopt these best practices in the DEI domain.
Basically, the more information we can find, the stronger score you would receive here.
I'm also really appreciative of including us here in this call and the body of work that you guys are presenting, because I think it's so helpful to see and understand sort of an external view of what PayPal looks like, in a very unbiased way. And so this is super helpful for us to be informed about what we look like, externally and help inform how we speak about what we do better. So thank you.
And something that video doesn't show that I think is really exciting to share is, okay, good, it's still there. They actually, after this call, PayPal actually made some of their policies that we were unable to find more transparent on their website. So they listened to the feedback that we gave them, because we don't touch on it too much in this presentation. One of that transparency that these companies are providing, they might have the policies, but they're just impossible to find. And they updated, I believe, 2 or 3 of their criteria or of their policies onto their website, thanks to the presentation we did with them. And that's just the beginning. We really want to do this more with more companies and get them to institute even more changes, including expanding the initiatives that they have. And so that is pretty much the end of our presentation. We'd really love for you guys to get involved with us. On the next slide, we're going to have a QR code if you would like to follow our Instagram or our LinkedIn and just stay connected with us. I think it's one of the biggest ways to kind of spread this index. The biggest thing for us right now is visibility and getting people to actually use the index. And then one of the things that we'd also love, if you have anybody you know at Barrett, the Honors College, I forgot to mention I am a former Barrett alum, and so that's how I got involved with the index. I did my thesis with them my junior year, and so we would love for you guys to get involved with our students and help assist them in their research. They're a big backbone of the work that we do. Again, some of them are here today. I'm so glad they could come. And then thirdly, growing our standards and review committee. We have a lot of ASU staff and faculty on our standards and review committee. So if this is something that's of interest to you, please just come talk to me or Si Chuang afterwards. But thank you so much. Here's the QR codes I mentioned, and we're going to open it up for a little Q&A if you guys have any questions. Thank you. This was probably one of our more comprehensive presentations. I don't know if there is questions, but if you have anything at all, feel free, or you can come up and talk to us afterwards too. Yeah.
What has been the most empowering initiative that you've found in your data collection, or maybe something that you learned while doing data collection that stuck with you for what you want when you go to the workplace?
That's a good question. Is this on? Yeah. I would say probably the most impactful, I guess one of the more surprising things, I'll touch on that, is just, and I'm sure you guys have experienced that doing data collection, just realizing, even though this is something that's talked about so much, gender equality, how much these companies actually might have initiatives and they're not even sharing about them, or it's really hard to find. And I think that's something for me that's really important. I want to go to a company that's proud to share what they're doing for their female employees and that's pushing to always improve. I think sometimes in the data collection I found, it looks like companies have these policies just to check a box, and I think that's something that I hope starts changing in the future, is it's not just a box to check or even to get a score on an index, like that they actually want to be doing this work and they see the value in promoting women.
Thank you.
Yeah. To target in terms of outreach partnerships, or yeah. So we have been reaching out to companies. It is sometimes hard to get a response because I don't think this is a top priority for a lot of companies, but we've been working on expanding that. So just honestly, especially in 2.0, we're planning to reach out to all the companies that are scored. I believe there's 60 companies on that index, and they're all Fortune 500 companies. So we would love for any of them, whether they're ranked good or bad. I think sometimes too, when they're not faring very well, they don't want to talk to us. Some of the companies that we have ranked and have been in talks with us, they fare pretty well on the index, but that's not our goal. We want to talk to the people that don't score very well too.
Yeah, actually, one more thing I want to mention here is when we try to select different companies, or a very important thing is we need to check if they have public available EO1 data, because we know it's mandatory from EOC, but usually some companies, they prefer to not make it public. So in that case, we are unable to measure it. So that's a very important part for how we select companies. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And with that, that's something that we are hoping in the future as we grow our credibility and our visibility is that even if these companies don't initially have their EEO reports or all the criteria in our index, that as they talk with us, they'll share that with us. And then once they share that with us, they'll realize the importance of actually sharing that with the general public. Okay.
Yeah, if you have any more questions, we can still talk about that after this session. Yeah, thank you for coming here today.
Thank you so much, everybody.